Καλησπέρα σας. Good evening to all. Θέλω πρώτα να σας ευχαριστήσω για την υπομονή σας, για την φαινομική αφοσίωσή σας στην Εκκλησία του Χριστού μας, για την αγάπη σας γενικώς. Φυσικά δεν υπάρχουν λόγια να ευχαριστήσω τον πατέρα Νίκο για την καλοσύνη του και την αγάπη που μου δείχνει και τώρα και τόσα χρόνια. Επίσης και τον πατέρα Διάκο Justin, ο οποίος είναι εξίσου ευλαβής κληρικός της Εκκλησίας μας. I'm grateful. I'm very grateful to be with you this evening. I should first like to also give great thanks to His Eminence Metropolitan Gerasimos. His simple ways, his kindness, his humility, his devotion to the Church as Metropolitan Bishop of this God-saved metropolis of California, San Francisco as it is called, and the other states, is an amazing feat. The way that he receives me regularly to visit this metropolis in such a humble and kind way. Sometimes we write official letters and we get official answers, but his answer to me was simply, enjoy your time here in the northwest of California. I'm equally grateful to our Metropolitan Bishop, Constantine, who's a new bishop. He's only been a bishop now less than a couple of years, I believe, and he's so hardworking, racing here and there churches throughout the biggest metropolis in America in land span, and he travels tirelessly. He's already ordained many priests and deacons. He gives sermons and generally encourages the faithful in the metropolis of Denver. It's really untold and unknown fully how much work our bishops put in. And that is why, of course, we strive to support them, to encourage them, to do what we can to help. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that the responsibility of just one bishop is greater than the responsibility of any head of a state, a president, or a prime minister. It's eternal. Our bishops stand tall before the holy altar of Christ our God on behalf of all the people. And I know that these two bishops and all of our bishops lend a respectful vow too for our Archbishop of America, Elpidoforos, who so valiantly strives to oversee all of America, all of our archdioceses, and working so very hard also. That hard work ethic should inspire all of us. And on that note, as we come to speak about Saint Paisios, I should like to encourage the young people here. I saw some of the young men here and the young girls and so forth, there you are, to make sure that you make good use of time. Time is so valuable. We only are on this earth for a limited amount of time, some shorter, some longer, but it's limited. It's short compared to our eternal salvation, and compared to our eternal joy that we will have in the heavenly realm there, the Holy Trinity, by the side of Our Lady, the Panagia, the forerunner John the Baptist, all the archangels and angels of God, We look forward to that. This is why we are patient in our journey in life. And so young people, I want you to think deeply about making good use spiritually of your time when you're young, to make pilgrimages, if you can, to visit the holy places of Greece and Mount Athos, where St. Paisios was for a time, and Mount Sinai in the Egyptian desert, and the holy island of Patmos, which Father alluded to, for St. Christodoulos and St. Amphilochios. Make those pilgrimages while you're young, especially, because after you're 30 and you're married and you start your career and have children, then you have other responsibilities to do. So I just give a encouraging word on that point to make sure that you use your youth wisely. There's a prayer now that we hear during the Great Apodipno. Lord, remember not the sins of my youth. One of the sins of being young may be not necessarily using our time wisely and letting it go by. Time is of the essence. How is the old Greek saying? Fidou, πώς το λέει, Μιχάλη? Fidou chron. That's it. Fidou chron. It means to use your time wisely. Make sure that you look at the time you have and use it. I'll begin with a story that is attributed to Saint Paisios that teaches us to understand the providence of God. We live in the providence of God. Everything is the providence of God. God is not missing but even a nanosecond out of our lives. He is present with us all the time. And Saint Paisios, and Saint Amphilochios, and Saint Nectarios, and Saint Christodoulos, and all the great saints remind us of that. That's why they gave themselves to Christ completely, so that they could understand and see that providence happening in their lives. So we need to think clearly that God is with us. Our being here this evening together is in the providence of God. God is with us. What a beautiful divine liturgy of the pre-sanctified lifts we all celebrated together tonight. Clergy and laity together, the boys serving in the holy altar, all of you hymning along piously, silently. It was such a beautiful liturgy. I don't think I've ever been to a more beautiful divine liturgy than this one tonight. The chanters, our priests so solemnly presenting those words that we give to the All-Holy Trinity. It's quite moving that we are the people of God. We know God. He is in us, especially now as we have received Holy Communion, those who did receive. He is all around us. He is present especially in Holy Communion, the real presence of Christ that He left for us to give us encouragement through this life. I've already heard requests for some prayers tonight of some people who are ill. We get ill. And so we are given the encouragement that Christ wants to give us. He came into the earth, incarnated, born of our blessed Theotokos. He came to give us encouragement and to leave us Himself so that we can have life eternal. And so we strive to be prepared to receive as often as we can. The preparation, of course, for Holy Communion is using our time wisely. Really, in a word. So he told the story about a man who was saying his prayers one evening. And he said his normal prayers, as we all perhaps do or should, the Trisagion prayers all the way through the Paterimon, through the Our Father, the symbol of faith, symbolo, is pisteos, or commonly known as the Creed. the 50th Psalm, and of course, a hymn or two to the Panagia. Those four things are foundational to the prayers that we should say morning and night. Well, that man was saying his prayers, and then at the end, as we might also do, he had a list of names that he prayed for, living and departed. And he would say those names. Then as he continued to pray, he started to complain a little bit. But why, Lord, is this happening to me? And why that war over there? And why people are sick? And why? And his complaining became so much that he was weeping, not out of joy for the Lord, but weeping in his sorrow and his complaining. And then sleep overtook him. Well, says St. Paisios, God didn't want to miss that chance, and so he sent an angel to take this fellow to show him something. That the providence of God is always prevailing. Not to be so worried. Something might look bad now, but there's a silver lining. Something good is going to happen after. So he took that man, the angel did, and they're flying up, soaring high, and the man sort of woke up. And he says, who are you? What are we doing? He says, I'm an angel of the Lord, and he sent me to show you something. And they landed in a very tall tree, like the sequoias up here in Northern California, Seattle, where are they? And they were sitting on a branch up there in the high trees. And the angel told him, now, I want you to stay right here, but there are going to be 3 men that are going to pass by below in your tree. I want you to just watch and listen, but don't say a word, whatever you might see. And with that, the angel disappeared. So the man is up there in this high tree by himself, a little bit afraid. And so sure enough, he heard some rustling in the bushes. And sure enough, this man came. And the man was happy. But he was more than happy. He was a little bit tipsy, as a matter of fact. And he was skipping, coming through the forest. And he sat down right at the bottom of that man's tree. And he had obviously had a little bit to drink, and he was wobbly and so forth. He sat down, and for a while he took his rest. Then he got up and left another way out of the forest. And the man is watching very attentively from above. Are you okay? Some water? He's watching very attentively from above. And he noticed that that man dropped his pouch. Obviously a pouch of money with silver or gold coins in it. But he's not supposed to say anything. So he doesn't. The man left. Then he heard some rustling in the trees below, and there was a second man that came. As happy as that first man was, this man was equally sad. He was crying. Lord, how will we make it through the winter? It's coming upon us. It's already October. We haven't paid our rent, and our landlord is saying that he might have to let us go. We don't have coats for the children, boots. It's going to be snowing. Please, Lord, what am I going to do? My job is almost done for the summer. How will we make it? How will we make it? He's crying. And he too came and sat at the bottom of St. Paisios, the man's tree. And as he's weeping there, he looked down and he saw the pouch of money. He opened it, surely it was gold coins and everything. He said, thank you, Lord. Thank you very much. I can't believe it. He was so ecstatic. It was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. Why was that there? He didn't know. Of course, the man up in the tree is watching and he knows, but he can't say anything. And so, with the pouch, put it in his pocket and went to go pay his rent and buy the children clothes for the winter. The providence of God. Finally, the third man came walking through the forest, says St. Paisios. This was a very old man. He had a bangura like mine. He was bent over, old and gray, walking very, very slow. I think somehow in the story Father Paisios said he was like 100 years old. And so he, walking in the forest, wanted to rest a little bit, so he sat underneath the tree as well. And he's sitting there, minding his business, maybe dozing off a little bit. Wouldn't you know it? A few minutes later, the first man came back looking for his pouch. And he looked around the tree, he looked around the old man that was half asleep there. He didn't see it. So he woke up the old man a little bit and he said, "Hey, give me my pouch." The old man woke up. What? Come on now, give me my pouch. I left it here just a little bit a while ago. I know you got it. Come on, just give it to me. It doesn't matter. The old man says, I don't know what you're talking about. Come on, give me my pouch, he said. And he pushed him and he hit him and he slapped him. Come on now, give me my pouch. And the old man said, I don't know what you're talking about. He pushed and shoved him so much that he killed him. The old man died. He checked on his body, on his person, no pouch, and he went off. And the man up in the tree who was complaining in his prayer said, "Please, angel, come back. What is all this about?" Okay, fine, I saw the one guy, the second guy got his pouch, this and that, but this man just killed this old man. And the angel appeared, and he said, "I told you that God wanted me to help you understand the providence of God is always taking place. Let me explain to you what happened. You only saw a moment in time in each one of those men's lives." He said, "The second man you saw that he was crying and he didn't have money to pay his rent and buy his children clothes and food and so forth. So God arranged that first man who was drinking a little bit sort of irresponsibly dropped his pouch, and the man found it, and he was able to make it through the winter." Yes, the man said, "But how about the old man? He didn't do anything, and he was just walking and..." Yes, for the record, that man was 102. And when that man was young, when he was in his 20s, you didn't know that. You were just watching 1 second in time, 1 moment in time. Early on in his life, he was involved in a big fight that happened in the marketplace where he was living, and he killed a man. Now, he wasn't convicted of it, but he wept bitterly then, and he went and confessed to a priest. And he said, "Please, Father, ask the Lord that when I go, it might be at the hands of another man like I took that man's life today." He was 102. How many more years was he going to live? He lived long, and God answered his prayer. "Oh," says the man, "yes, I get it. That's something. How about that? I could never have thought of that. But how about the first guy? He was a little bit drunk, he was sloppy, he left his pouch, he came back, it wasn't there. The other guy took it, and he just went off." He says, "Yes, but you didn't see his road back. On the way back to his village, to his town, he started to think about all the things he'd done in his life and hadn't done, his mistakes, his sins, this moment when he killed the old man. And he stopped in the middle of the forest and cried his heart out. What have I done? Not only this today, but so many bad things in my life." When he got back to his village, he called the parish priest to hear his confession. He gave his confession of his whole life, and from that day on, he became a model Christian in his town. He helped build churches, he helped the poor, helped this and that, he assisted the priests. So that is told by our beloved Saint Paisios to remind us that God's providence is always taking place if we would but open our hearts and eyes to see. There's another very well-known thought from Saint Paisios that I share with you now. Very beautiful. He says that there are only two kinds of people in the world. He says there are your common houseflies and your honeybees. He says the housefly, even if you put it in a fragrant meadow, acres and acres of beautifully smelling flowers, that fly won't touch any of them and will go and stick on the cow dung, the pile of cow dung. The honeybee, on the other hand, even if you put it in the biggest trash dump of San Francisco, acres of trash and trash, that honeybee will go and find the one fragrant flower that's growing. And so that's an echo to the words of, or the suggestion of Saint Basil the Great back in the 4th century, to always look for the good, whatever we can. Young men, young ladies, elders, mothers and fathers, grandparents, single people, students. It's an encouragement that he wants to give us, Saint Paisios does, and I share his sentiment with you tonight, to always look for the good. In fact, see this honeybee bag here? For your enjoyment, I brought a jar of honey. And I brought little spoons as I continue to share with you about St. Paisios. I want you to pass it around. No double dipping. Come and help me, young man. Open that if you would. Put the jar top here. Go around and give each person a spoon and let them dip in there. While I continue the talk, if you would do that quietly, please. I like that. He went to his friend first. Make sure he gets some. There was a beautiful program on the podcast and Facebook. I don't know what exactly it was, but a young man who graduated from our Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology, and it was on regularly. I don't know if it's still on. It was called Be the Bee. Yeah. And he would talk about so many good things that everybody is doing in the church the world over. In most of the lives of saints, and it is very, very true in the life of Saint Paisios, one of the first things we'll read in their biography is that they had good and pious parents. Somehow, in the cases of myriad saints, it makes sense that they became holy because their parents were holy. You learn at home. I said to Father earlier today, everything I learned, I say it about monastic life, I learned before I was 12. At home, do we not learn to be obedient to our parents? Do we not learn to be polite, to say please and thank you? Do we not learn to respect our siblings if we have, our elders, to be good little boys and girls? We learn those things at home. To pray. Who first exemplifies prayer to us but our parents, our father and our mother? Who takes us by the hand and we go to church, and Sundays and whenever else? Who makes sure that we're clean and washed and prepared, and physically and spiritually, to go to church, but our parents? Not to take away anything from the valiant efforts of Saint Paisios to give himself completely to Christ, to the All-Holy Trinity, to the church, but he had a great, great start. His mother was a holy lady, and so was his father. I believe his father's name was Prodromos, and his mother's name Evlogia. Prodromos was in their town in Asia Minor. Parasa was the leader. He was president of the community. And that had been handed down to him from generations of his father and his grandfather, leadership, and a serious leader, a good leader, a kind man, a strong man. His mother, too, Evlogia, was a pious, pious lady. The words of Christ, our God, and the Panagia were on her lips all the time, blessing the children. She and her husband Prodromos prayed regularly before their icons in their home. They raised, I think, 8 children. This was St. Paisios' birth in 1924, the day of Agia Anna, July 25th, 1924, when the exchange of populations was happening in Asia Minor and Greece. As a matter of fact, I note that St. Paisios' life was surrounded by war. He was born in war, and he continued to be in war. As he got older, then the Greco-Turkish War broke out. I don't remember all the details of the times. Then, in 1940, he was only 16 years old, World War II broke out in Poland. He served in the army. After World War II, during the Civil War of Greece, which was, she was hurting so much, she didn't know how to get up back on her feet after World War II. So he was born into war and was living through war, and that's why he wanted to be a warrior for Christ, for the kingdom of heaven. Herodotos is the ancient man known as the father of history. Herodotos says that our life is war. It's a battle. He wrote about the war between Persia and Greece, Alexander the Great and Xerxes. That whole book, thicker than this book about St. Paisios. Did I show you that? It's a beautiful book out about him, translated into many languages. Herodotos' book comes down to a simple meaning about the fight that Alexander the Great gave for freedom and the fight against Alexander and all the Hellenic lands, like Xerxes, who wanted nothing but to subjugate people as slaves, to enslave them. Certainly, St. Paisios and so many of the great saints of our days read those works and know about the fight that we give in life for the kingdom of heaven. Well, that exchange of populations was happening. You know about it a little bit, I'm sure, in Asia Minor. The Treaty of Lausanne was made that all Greeks that lived in Asia Minor were to be shipped back to Greece. Asia Minor was Greece, but now that the Ottoman Turks had taken over, it became Turkey. Although, I'll tell you something that maybe you didn't know, our Yeronda shared that with us a couple of years ago when I was visiting with him in Greece. Ataturk, Kemal Ataturk, wanted to make all of Turkey Greek Orthodox. He was a very God-fearing man, a noble person, a brilliant man who understood that these people and this faith and this history can't be snuffed out. Did everybody get some? Is this left over?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great job, Antonio.
How was the honey? Good?
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Honey, by the way, is understood even by nutritionists and scientists as the perfect food. Honey can't go bad. It's nothing but pure nectar taken from the beautiful flowers. That is why one of the reasons we look to the honeybees as an example of our lives, especially we in the monastic realm. There's a queen bee who directs everybody, and all the little bees go around to go get and bring to the beehive the purest nectar. Likewise, monks to their Yeronda, to their igumeno, to their spiritual father or superior, are obedient, and he gives commands and guidance and things for us to do, and we run and we do them. And that's how the church has grown. Obedience is such a beautiful, beautiful virtue that Saint Paisios activated in his life to the nth degree. Honey is also from which we make our candles usually that we use in the church, beeswax candles. And that's why they provide that special aroma in the church, just like the taste we have on our lips now for the honey we ate. In our churches, there's a special fragrance because partly of the beeswax candles and of course from the incense, and two, perhaps from our own beings because we strive to live holy lives, to eat properly, to pray a lot. It's why when we take the bones, when we exhume the bones of people, when they really were holy, their bones even are fragrant, smelling like something like that, but it's a heavenly fragrance. We say that St. Paisios is from Farasa of Asia Minor. It's a little town, you can look on the map, halfway between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea below in Asia Minor, now known as Turkey. But he didn't live there, he was only born there. And they had a holy priest, a priest monk, who was their parish priest like Father Niko is to you. His name was Arsenius, Father Arsenius. And Father Arsenius was a very, very good priest, as our Father Niko, very noble, very forthright and righteous, a real father. And they all trusted and respected him very, very much. And when the exchange of populations was coming, he knew it was coming, and he got everybody ready. And he told all the mothers of newborn children that had not yet been baptized to bring them to the church. Because before heading back on the arduous trip that it would be through much of Asia Minor and then crossing the waters to get over to Greece, was going to be very, very difficult. Lest any of those children would die, you'd rather have them baptized now. So they brought the children to the church there in Farosa and were baptized, and that included St. Paisios. He was their, I forget what number, child, maybe fifth child, and they wanted to name him some name, and Father Arsenios made a prophecy somehow. Can we name him Arsenios? I want to have some progeny and someone to follow in my steps also. And so they agreed, and his name was given Arsenios. That's not to take away from the fact that St. Paisios believed and knew, as we all do, that God's greatest gift to us, young men, you know what God's greatest gift to us is? Generally speaking, by all the fathers that I've read, it's freedom. We have freedom. We're free. So even though Father Averki, that holy man, said, I'd like to have someone follow in my footsteps, that maybe this little baby would become a monk like me someday, he didn't have to become a monk. He grew up and he wanted to. It's very important. In fact, I'll tell you a personal story of mine with St. Paisios. I was a younger man then when I was studying at Holy Cross, and I was directed to visit Mount Athos. We were all young students in our 20s, and we had a very, very noble, prayerful, special fellow who came to study from Thessaloniki. He is currently the Metropolitan of Mesogeia. It's a portion of Athens. Bishop or Metropolitan Nikolaos Hadzi Nikolaou. He was a student with us in the 80s at Holy Cross. That man was viewed by many of us students. Do you remember him, John? Were you there then?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Many of us students felt that we learned more from Niko than we were learning from our professors. He really was just an encyclopedia of knowledge and piety. He grew up in Thessaloniki, and I stayed at his home, and he had very, very pious parents who were both scientists, physicists, I think. They have passed on. Anyway, he told a lot of us about St. Paisios, or this holy elder, Geronda Paisios, that lived in Mount Athos. So I wanted to go. So I worked a couple of different jobs. If you work hard, boys, and make money, you can do things in life. You have to work hard. Don't waste our time. Study, work, read, pray.
You didn't say video games.
Right. You know, that's one of the common confessions that we spiritual fathers hear from young men, even 30 and 35 years old, that they spend all night sometimes, 5-6 hours, just playing video games. And it hurts my soul, it hurts theirs more, perhaps, or they don't make progress. Anyway, so I worked a couple of jobs. I'm not bragging about that, forgive me. I'm just saying that I wanted to. I went to the seminary and I wanted to learn as much as I could, and God put in front of us this very pious man from Thessaloniki. He was also our age, 20s. And so I made it my business to go to Mount Athos and meet St. Paisios, and I did. God blessed me. God gave me the encouragement. God gave me the foresight. I was able to work. I had my health. And so I went and I found St. Paisios. At that time, he lived in a small home, just about 20-minute walk from the big monastery of Kutlumusi, I think. Anyway, I went to visit him, and there were about 6 or 7 fellows sitting with him in the back of his house on stumps. That's what he had for chairs in the back, and as a rural countryside place would be. And I couldn't believe it. And there he was sharing some thoughts, and they were asking questions. So I kind of rose my hand, or I was a little bit afraid, and my Greek wasn't quite so good. And I asked, I said, Geronda, which would be preferable, to become a monk or to get married? Well, wouldn't you know it, he shunned me. He didn't answer. was pretty sure he heard me and I caught his eyes. But he, at that point, shooed all of us away to go back to the monastery that we were staying, the big monastery, because it was starting to get dark, and he didn't want us to be shut out of the monastery. I couldn't believe it. He came all that way. But maybe he knew. I don't know. Maybe he knew. Well, I made it my business after that next year, when I studied again at the seminary. I went back again the next year to see him. And the same thing happened. Maybe he knew. I had one more year of studies at Holy Cross in 1986. I graduated with Father George, Presbytera's husband. And I went again. And this time I found him alone. Actually, yes, I found him alone. And I was sitting with him, and again, a little bit insecure or timid or afraid or not sure. And I asked him, Γέροντα, ποιο θα ήταν πιο καλύτερα, να παντρευτώ ή να γίνω μοναχός? Which would be preferable, that I become a monk or get married? And Saint Paisios went berserk. He started jumping up and down. I didn't know what to think. It lasted for minutes, jumping around. And he was a little man, and he was older then, gray. I didn't know what to think of it. Finally, he sat down. He looked me straight in the eye, and he said, «Κοίταξε, παιδί μου, ο καλός μοναχός θα ήταν και καλός οικογενειάρχης και ο καλός οικογενειάρχης θα ήταν καλός μοναχός. Φτάνει να είσαι καλός». He said, young man, a good monk would have been a good head of a household. And a good head of a household, a husband, would have been a good monk. Just be good, he said to me. In that moment, he set my unworthy heart free. I melted. I felt such great joy. I was, if I could say if I was ever in ecstasy, it was that moment. Hearing from a holy man who a lot of people considered him holy, but he wasn't counted a saint yet. And he didn't want to take away from me that greatest gift that God gives to all of us, freedom. When he was in the army in 1953, 4, 5, he hadn't yet become a monk, but he wanted to become a monk. And he made a promise to Panagia that he would go back to Konitsa. Konitsa was the town that his people came to from Asia Minor. Now, how all the people went around and where they went to live, I don't know all the details of that. Some had relatives, some had friends, and so they'd go to the town where they were. It was very difficult for Greece. Hundreds of thousands of people, brothers and sisters of theirs, Greek people, but still foreign to them, coming over across the waters from Asia Minor, were flooding the country, and they didn't know how to handle it exactly, and there weren't always good encounters. Anyway, his people went to Konitsa. It's on the Albanian border of northwestern Greece. And there was an old monastery there, named for the Theotokos, that had been bombed by the Germans during World War II. And now this is after World War II, in the Civil War of Greece. He made a vow to the Panagia that he would go back and restore her monastery. It's not a bad thing to make promises to the Panagia or to Christ himself, but we have to be careful what we promise because we have to fulfill those things. most cases we say, don't promise. Just make sure you do what you're doing and do it well and go forward. Well, he promised that. And so, even though he went to Mount Athos after his time as a radio operator in the war, because he didn't want to take up arms, he was like the conscientious objectors in wars who don't want to take up a gun and kill people. He was like that. And so they allowed him and they made him a radio operator. He didn't have to take up a gun. And he counted that as a prelude to his becoming a man of prayer. So as a radio operator, he sent messages back and forth to the general and so forth, and to the battalion he was serving. And then later became that man of prayer who helped so many people, so many people. One instance comes to mind now that he was praying for the children, for the youth. And that's what his life was. He wanted to be with God and pray on behalf of all the people and pray for himself to repent and to make it to heaven. And a man came to the monastery one time, grateful that his son was saved in a car accident, a bus or something in Athens. And he was traveling around Mount Athos thanking God. When he saw St. Paisios, he remembered the man who swept his son out of the road and saved him from getting hit by this bus. And he looked exactly like St. Paisios. He says, "Were you in Athens on that day, a month ago or whenever?" Of course not. But he was praying for the youth. And that experience happened. So back in Konica, when he went to Mount Athos, he was like the honeybee, and he would go from monastery to monastery to visit with holy monks, particularly the abbots and many of the monks that lived in the monasteries. He wanted to see how they lived and what they did, so he could emulate them, their holiness, their devotion, their prayerfulness, their discipline, their gentleness, their integrity. And I think on that first time he stayed, I don't remember exactly, forgive me, but an illness, I think, had him return home. And then he went again and remembered his vow. I think he became a monk. And then he went back, he said, and his Yeronda, who he had then, allowed him to go back because of the promise he made to Papadeas. He went back to his home, Konica, and rebuilt the monastery just outside of their village. And most of the people loved him. From his other patron saint, Saint Averki. He was named Averki as a monk on Mount Athos. Saint Averkios was in the 1st or 2nd century. He's called equal to the apostles. He brought so many people back to the church during those centuries when there was havoc. We can't even understand what it was like, really, in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd centuries, the persecutions. But Saint Averkios brought a lot of people back. His name is Averkios, and certainly he read the life of Saint Averkios. And when he went back to his home in Konica, he came to find out that 800 people or families had been influenced by somebody who came to Greece and were teaching Protestant things. And so in those 3.5 years, I think that he was in Konica, much of his work was trying to make sure that others weren't influenced by this heresy, and that some that had fallen into the heresy would come back. He would tell them, when they come to your door, make sure they can see your icons. Put your icons somewhere on your mantle or something. And say, "Oh, we'll talk, yes, but see their reaction to the fact that you have icons of Christ, of Panagia, of the angels, of the saints. Ask them to venerate your icons, and then you can talk." They won't do either of that. And yet he said, look, and they say that they love Christ. And they don't love his mother, They don't venerate her icon. They don't love his followers, the saints and the angels, and they won't venerate her icons. Where is their love for Christ? And so in this way, in a simple manner, he was able to bring so many people back to the church, the one holy Catholic or universal and apostolic church, the church to which we are grateful to belong and be members of. There were also some who were of the communist persuasion all over Greece at this time. They weren't bad people, they were good people. The confusion of war, battles, pride for their nation, wondering what should we do, what shouldn't we do, and so forth, and influence and so forth. He was able to bring them around too because of his kindness and his deep, deep respect for every person. In fact, the church, the official church leaders, bishops and so forth, were a little bit upset with him because he was also giving money that people would give him to help him build the monastery and then to distribute, because he was also a carver and he would carve icons and crosses and so forth, which would give him a little bit of money that he could help to build and to give to poor families. They were upset at him because he was giving some of the money to quote-unquote communists. And he said, but Your Eminence, Christ taught us to love all people. I don't distinguish what party someone is from, as we might think in our days, and make sure, if we can, please, we don't distinguish between Republicans and Democrats. We're each privileged to choose what we want to be and vote the way we want to vote, but that's not of eternal importance. What's important is our souls and our salvation of our souls and the souls of our children and our grandchildren. And so I give to you to understand that too from the teachings of St. Paisios and the whole church. The church is apolitical. The church is for Christ our God, for the eternal salvation which Christ came into the world for each and every human being. He didn't come just to help us in Castro Valley or us of the Greek Orthodox Church in America or of Greece or of anywhere. He came to save all human beings. And so St. Paisios knew that, and he spoke with respect and love and politeness to everyone he met, and he didn't distinguish. It's only one page of notes. How much can I talk? These are just scribbles, reminders. I want to recommend to you, get this book, maybe, Father, if you get some requests for books and so forth, maybe you can give Father the $30 beforehand or whatever it costs, and then he can order 10 or 15 of these so you can have them in your homes. But not only to have them in your homes, to share them with your children or your relatives or your niece or your nephew, or to give one as a gift. Now, Pascha is coming up. Give a gift to a young person or to a friend or to a certain person that you love. It's a beautiful book. It has all the details of everything that he did. He was a restless sort, by the way, also, St. Paisios. His heart and soul were aimed at loving God, praying to God, sacrificing his life through prayer and fasting and giving and helping others for God. And so that took him, yes, to Mount Athos. It took him back home to Stomio. Stomio was the little area outside of Konica where the monastery was, the Panagia. Then he went to Mount Sinai. He thought he'd find some more peace and quiet there, and they did. They accepted him and they let him live in a cave somewhere up in Mount Sinai where the prophet Moses received the 10 Commandments. Somehow or another something happened there and he wasn't quite a fit for him, so he went back to Mount Athos. And he received the blessing there from a certain elder to have a little place of his own so that he could live in quietude, in silence, just praying to God. I remember even out of his humility. He didn't think he was something, by the way. None of the saints did or do. He was a humble man. He didn't think of himself holy. He just thought he was a sinner trying in this way of life, whether he was married or becoming a monk, to work out his salvation, as St. Paul tells us all. Work out your salvation. Do you read the Bible a little bit, boys? Do. Read it. Read it every day, even if you read just one sentence. Keep your Bibles open on your nightstand or in your desk, wherever you keep it. Don't close your Bible. Read a little bit every day. Just even one word. Sometimes you'll read a paragraph, sometimes you'll read a chapter. But read a little bit of the Bible. Every word in the Bible is holy, even if it's just a and or the. If you read it from the Bible, something different is happening. Keep that in mind. I remember we had a professor when I studied in Thessaloniki. Not a professor, a holy elder who came to speak to us once a week. Yeroda Simeon Krayopoulos. He gave a whole hour talk about that one time. He got real riled up. He said, now please, students, every night, please, 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 read at least one word from the Bible. And he got us all, me included, reading the Bible regularly. Farasa, by the way, where he was born, not that where we're born necessarily has to do with our spirituality, but it's part of the Cappadocia area where St. Basil was from, where St. Gregory of Nyssa was from. And in Farasa, where he was born, he didn't know it because he's a baby, in that small town district, there were 50 churches, 50 saints. Here in the Bay Area, Father told me there are 10 churches. And they're far, far, far. In between is businesses and houses and complexes and everything. That we even can be here tonight, young men, and I'm very, very impressed and proud of you with the little that we have of churches in this, and you young ladies are here, and all of you, we're here. And so you're to be commended. And do all the more that you can. We weren't born in that situation, and nor did we come back to Greece, which is also when they came from Asia Minor to Greece, churches everywhere, saints everywhere. Saint Paraskevi, Saint Pantaleimon, Saint Nikolaos, Saint Nectarius, Saint this, Saint that. Not Saint Nectarius yet, he wasn't yet sainted. Did I tell you about the honeybees? All right, have at it. Ask me a question there, young man. What would you like to know, any of you? Those icons that I gave out of St. Paisios, some of you got those ones that are like half. Right. Well, that's how they printed them. I don't know what happened. But I like them because it looks like St. Paisios is peeking behind the corner to say, come on, come close. Use it in that way. They're beautiful. They're nonetheless icons of a holy man, a great man, a humble man, a sincerely devout Christian man. And that's what we all aim to be. And I tell that motivation to the young ones about Fidu chronu, use your time wisely. I say it to all of us. Maybe we're on the upper end of our lives. Maybe we're thinking about that day when we'll go. We too should be using our time wisely. Reading, doing good deeds in Christ's name, participating in church. Even, of course, we have aches and pains and so forth, but as much as we can while we have time. And then one day we'll fall asleep, either by accident or, God forbid, but illness or old age, whatever it might be, but we're all going to go one day. We're going to go where? We're going to go to heaven. That's our goal, that's our aim, that's our hope. But reading the scriptures, hearing the sermons, following the church ways, we're going to learn to more acutely follow Christ's commandments of love, to love God and to love our fellow man. Those are the two great commandments. Everything rides upon those two. So what was that question? Why do we monks let our beards grow? Is that what you said? The answer to that is, why in the world would men scrape their faces every day?
Father, can I ask a
Please.
question too?
Yes.
On your point about, using our time wisely, we live in a culture now that to even prioritizes too weak of a word, but overemphasizes entertainment and distraction constantly. And on the one hand, we know that a bow that is constantly in tension will break. We're allowed to enjoy and be together and celebrate and things like this. What is that balance, though, between wasting time and not being constantly serious? Even St. Paisios could jump around and smile and laugh and so on. What is that balance?
I should be very good at this question because I waste a lot of time. So thank you. Right, we have to find balance. It's good to have an accountability with a spiritual father that at least I know it helps me, that I know I have my Yeronda, and I know that I'm going to call him at a pace of about once a month, so it urges me on to not waste as much time as I already waste. That's one way when we have an accountability to a spiritual father, that we know that we contact him once a month or so, and we're shy and we're embarrassed a little bit, but no matter, because the spiritual father has his own things that he's working on that he talks to his spiritual father about. So that's one way, I think. Another is just to remember, I think, Father, to your question, I don't know exactly, but to realize and remember that we only have one day, today. We don't know about tomorrow. It hasn't come yet. Yesterday is gone. We have today, and we all chose to be here today. Good for us. All right. Some didn't choose to come. We don't know what tomorrow will be. But every day, rise in the morning, boys, do your stavro, and say, thank you, Lord. Another day. Now, how will I spend it? And what good things will you bring in front of me because of the God's will always taking place? And you'll see many, many things. I met 3 Johns today, including my friend John from the seminary. 3 men that I talked to today were all semblances of the name John. The Uber guy that took me to the airport this morning, his name was Sean, which is a form of John. Then when I went to the airport, and I thought, it came to me as I passed by the store that has the honey, his name was very nice young man, very nice. I asked him about the spoons. He said, no problem, Father. He got all his spoons and he gave me all the spoons and he charged me a little bit less or gave me a discount. His name was Juan. And then I hadn't talked to anybody else except Father Nick and Brigitte Stigliani and the boys. And then I saw John in the altar this night. Now, if that's not in my little life a reminder that the prophet, forerunner, John the Baptist is with us, I don't know. That's what it is in my mind. And I met the one guy, and he was such a nice fellow that drove me this morning, and Juan was such a nice fellow, and John embraced me there in the altar. We should use those connections to help us be Christian. We are Christians. When I see telephone poles, the old kind that look like crosses, I think of the cross of our Savior and his sacrifice for me and for all of us. When I see streets that happen to be named St. Paul here in America, I don't know why they named it St. Paul, but I know who St. Paul is. I read him and I pray to him. Make connecting the dots. Think of Christian things, all of it more that you can in your life, and then you won't fall into the traps. But as far as entertainment goes, by the way, I'd like to recommend that you all see that beautiful film, which you probably saw. I think we saw some of it together. Did we watch it together, Man of God?
Yes.
I think we did. There's a couple of other good films that Father Nick and Father Justin will recommend to you. But entertainment's not a bad thing. Of course, yours truly likes basketball a little bit. And I don't go to a basketball game, although they asked me to go to a game this week that is the March Madness. I'm not going to go. I wasn't even tempted to go. I don't want to go, but I like basketball. I played basketball. In fact, when I said it, the things I learned to be a monk before I was 12, I was playing basketball when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and I learned about teamwork. I learned about respect and honoring your teammates and the other team and so forth. Playing by the rules, as St. Paul says so succinctly, an athlete is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. So we learn things from, and it's also good health-wise. St. Paisios said that the metanias that he would make at night was also good for the body. Doing those full prostrations helped him to stay healthy and agile and so forth. He did bear some sicknesses in his life for overdoing it, and he learned from that. We have to be careful not to overdo our fasting or our exercising and so forth. But those are some of the thoughts around that good question, Father Justin. Thank you. I can perceive that we're all getting tired, especially Natalie right here in front of me. And Natalie has offered to maybe spend the day with me and Father and maybe some others tomorrow, which is very nice, and take me to the airport for my flight after 4 o'clock, which I'm very grateful for. I knew her brother. Her brother was studying at the seminary at one of the 3 times that I was there. And Jason also, before he was married, with some other students, came and stayed with me at the monastery for a week or 10 days, I remember. We enjoyed that. Most years we'll have a seminarian or 2 come and visit us. And I welcome all of you. If you would like to come and visit us in Denver, we'll try to reserve a spot for you. We have 6 guest beds. If there's an overflow, there's a little hotel nearby, or we can put you up in some people's homes in Denver. We can spend some time together in worship, going to see the beautiful Rocky Mountains. We can take you to meet our Bishop Metropolitan Constantine. We have 2 other churches in Denver, the big churches, and some other churches. We have a Serbian church in Denver, a Romanian church. Anyway, again and again, without any reservation, I'm very indebted to all of you who come and want to learn these things about saints and so forth, and especially to Father Niko and to Father Justin, and very, very grateful to His Eminence Metropolitan Erasmus and to our Metropolitan in Denver, Constantine, for being with you. No questions? Clap or something, I don't know. Oh, wait, I have a question. We have a question.
You mentioned Father Simeon Krayopoulos.
Yes.
How well do you know him, and how far back you met him? Had he built the monastery in Panorama?
Yes.
He had.
When I went to study, thank you, Mikhail, when I went to Greece to study in 1986, after I graduated from the seminary the first time, my spiritual father, Father Michael Vavarellis, said, when you go to Thessaloniki, I want you to confess with Father Simeon Krayopoulos. You'll find him at the monastery of Snap. You know what? I found out about the monastery the first time I went. I heard that they have liturgies on Saturdays. So I got up there early in the morning, and the gate was locked. The gate was locked. Can you imagine? The gate was locked, and I wanted to go to church, to the liturgy. Well, I wasn't going to let any gate stop me. I jumped the fence. And I went in, and Father Krayopoulos was incensing at the Panagia, the Intimiotera, and he looked a little bit cross-eyed at me. He kept incensing my back, and afterwards, one of the monks came. Yaronda wants to see you. My first encounter with Father Simeon was that moment that he gently told me about, we don't jump fences. He became my spiritual father for the 8 months or so that I was in Greece.
That's what you learned playing basketball. How did you?
Right. Anything else? Because Natalie's about to fall asleep.
I just want to say that in times like right now in Greece, they have a lot of problems economically, spiritually, and in all kind of ways. But St. Paisios, it still influences right now because they make these amazing series, TV series,
Oh, yes.
which I would say that argue saying aloud that would happen, which is one of the most popular shows in Greece.
There are like 15 episodes, I think.
Yeah, and it's amazing if you see it. I cannot believe every time I saw it, I would start crying because it's so.
How many have seen those episodes of St. Paisios? Look it up on the internet. Paisios. Of the Farsa. You can write it in English letters. Agios, A-G-I-O-S. Paisios.
I just want to say
You know,
something.
yeah, it's a mega, but you have to pay for it.
You can get it for free. You can download a VPN and do Greece as a location, and then you can watch it.
I think even some of them are subtitled. I'm not
And
sure.
if you put it on Google anyway, there is ways to see it for free. But it's in Greek. That's the problem.
I think maybe some of them have subtitles in
Sometimes.
English.
But anyway, it's just amazing how influenced now a lot of people that they didn't even believe, a lot of children, because a lot of people watching that show.
Yes.
And it's amazing how St. Paisios, of course, it still influences so much.
Thank you for reminding us to look that up if you like. Yes. There are many things that we can see too, young men and all of us, so that we can occupy our time. We want to be entertained. There are holy things also to watch. There's a beautiful thing that a fellow student of mine, Father Panayotis Papageorgiou, puts out. It's called Trisagion Films, and he does the lives of so many saints. His son actually does it, and he helped Father Panayotis helps him. Very beautiful. Lots and lots of things are on the airwaves that we can learn and enjoy, and we can learn to chant. You can learn to read and write Greek if you want. And by the way, I appreciate that here at the parish, you're wisely using also the Greek language. Not because you who are chanting want to understand it, or you think the people in the pews understand, but you want to provide that for this generation and the next generation to hear it, so that they can want to keep it when they are getting older. These boys are 16 and 17, to continue, because the Greek language hides so much deep meaning and spirituality, so we don't want to lose that here in America where we're free. We want to make sure that we maintain a healthy balance of using Greek and English. Yes, sir.
Thank you for.
I remember you from
Thank
last
you for
time.
that. I remember you too very well. We had, at one time, our liturgy book had the phonetic for Greek, which I enjoyed because it
That was a
worked.
great addition. You're right. I think Father John Magoulios, if I'm not mistaken, made
Yeah,
that.
Father John.
I wish, and if you're hearing me on the airwaves there of churches around the world, and America especially, get Father John Magoulios. Let him maybe print 1 million more of those. It has Greek phonetics, and English.
Right. I was able to actually, participate,
Sure.
being an Irishman, or English and Irish.
If I may interject on that, because it's an interesting story. Father John Magoulios, who did do that translation, or put that book together, I should say, grew up only seldom going to church because he grew up in a very rural part of Illinois, and he was only able to go to church maybe once every 2 months, he said. When he did go often, the one staple during the year was going during Holy Week. And in his life, he became very, very fond of the Papadeas book translation for Holy Week, and used that in his liturgy book, in a lot of places. And that reminded me of something I don't know if I've ever said, which was the Holy Week book that we often use. You'll notice on the inside, there's a Father George Papadeas. That was Father Christodoulos' uncle who translated that book.
By the way, we don't have editions that have Greek and English, so that slowly but surely we'll get rid of the Greek.
No,
We have editions that have Greek and English so that we can improve and desire learning Greek. That's why we have them. So let's keep that in mind a little bit, of course. Of course, here we do, and Bishop Erasmus, I know, wants to, and across the board. Anyway, what a lovely dinner we had tonight. Thank you all who took the foods. I urge you on, as St. Paisios will want me to urge you, stay close to Christ. Love his mother, the Panagia, and the saints, and involve yourselves more and more with the church while we have time.
Father, thank you so much. One more round of applause, please.